Hi, my name is Stephanie. I'm the mom of 8 kids, ages 19 down to 3. And we have homeschooled now since 2009. And so today I'm going to be talking about the Apologia Exploring Creation with Physics book. And I like talking about some of the high school books because I find it harder to get reviews and information about homeschooling in high school. It's just not as common. People choose other things, and a lot of people get intimidated by high school science. I do actually have a degree in science education, and so that kind of helps me have an idea of what I'm looking for, and I have done this, but I just kind of want to be able to give people a flip through of what the book looks like. I want to encourage you that this book can be done by anybody, even if you are not a huge math or science person. There's a lot of math. It is an upper level course. So you are looking at juniors and seniors here taking this class, and you do have to have some math background to be able to do the course. But this course does give you all the answers and all the information of how they get the answers, so you're really able to do it on your own. So I just want to encourage you that anybody can do this. I'm going to show you a quick flip through of what the book looks like on the inside, and then I'll come back and talk to you about how I plan the course for our kids for the year. Okay, so here's a look at Exploring Creation with Physics, the second edition by Jay Weil. I have both the textbook and the solutions and test book. This book is really important because it has all of the answers in it. So just a little flip through this book. This book is soft cover. The old ones are hardcover, so if you end up buying a used one, you might be able to find a hardcover one. I actually had a hard time finding a used one when I looked before, and it was just as cheap to buy the new one. The new one is soft cover, so durability-wise, it won't be as great, but so kind of start with the intro. It gives some information about some videos you can purchase, some courses you can purchase. We've never used that. We've simply used both the textbook and the solutions guide. It talks about experiments, and then it starts going through the modules that are in here. First, there's an introductory part. Depending on how your kids are with math and what they have learned about scientific notation and significant figures, they probably will need to read through this. This is an advanced course. This is meant for juniors and seniors, kids that have finished Algebra 1, Algebra 2, have done probably a little bit of trig. There is some trig in this. They can do it without having a lot of trig knowledge, but they will need to have some. They also will need to use calculators. The calculator they use for the ACT is an excellent option. Their phone calculators will work, but can be a little trickier if you have a lot of numbers to put in. It may take them a few more steps. So you have the introductory remarks, then you have the modules that goes from 1 all the way through module 16, which is magnetism. What is interesting about the book and just physics in general is you start kind of simply, and it gets a little harder and a little harder, and by module 4 you're at the hardest module. The equations themselves are not terribly difficult, but knowing how to use them and where to use them becomes a little tricky. There's a little application of that in both 5 and 6 also, but once you get through those, it definitely becomes easier for the kids. So if you have kids that are doing this and they get to 4 and they're like, this is just too hard, persevere, work through the problems together, keep looking at the answers, keep pushing along, and it does get easier. Okay, and then you actually have the textbook. This is the introductory part, so it's a little bit different, but it gives the information on measurement and significant figures and scientific notation. Significant figures are going to matter, especially when you're comparing to the book's answers and why their answers might be slightly different. We find that they round a little sooner than we would round if we were doing the math. Okay, so then you have the first chapter, or they call them modules. There's 16. If you do a 36-week school year, that means you're going to be doing 2.5 modules a week. But like I said, that module 4, 5, and 6 are the hardest ones, so you'll probably need to allot a little extra time for those. And then some of the others you can probably do a little more quickly. Has the introduction. Anything in here that is going to be a vocabulary word is underlined and set aside so the kids can see those very quickly to understand some concepts. They will need to know some of the vocabulary words. There aren't a ton, but there are some throughout. Then what it does is it gives an example, and it explains very precisely how to solve that problem. And then it gives you an on your own problem that's going to be very similar to the example. So you can work that. What is really nice is that at the end of the module are the answers to the on your own problems. It goes through, and not only does it give you the answer, it explains why it got the answer. So what I recommend is that as your child's going through, they go through the example, they try the on their own, then they look at the answers of how they did the on your own. Any equations are set aside in these little pink boxes. I allow my kids to make a cheat sheet on a note card with all of these equations on them. That allows them to have the equations. They will end up remembering most of these equations because they use them so much, but it just takes that stress off of them to have to try to remember them. And again, more examples, very good explanations of why they're doing what they're doing to get the answers, more on your own. And it keeps going through that for different sections. Then you get to these green boxes. These green boxes are labs. And so it tells you, this one, very simple stuff, stopwatch, a pile of books, a wooden board. A lot of labs need the wooden board, so you'll definitely want to get one. A pencil, a ball. And then it talks through very specifically how to run the lab. What it does not give you is any kind of data table or charts. Your kids will need to be able to start writing down the measurements, writing down the data, working with them to come up with how do I make a data table, or just making sure that they write down the information they need. After each lab in the white section, it will explain what the lab was teaching them. Also, anytime there's mathematical work in the lab, that will be explained in the solution and test book. So if there's math work for the lab and you're not understanding what to do, it does explain in the solutions and test guide how to do this. So it just keeps going in that way through through the chapter. And then after that, there's a set of review questions and then a set of practice problems for the kids to do. Also, in the very back of the book, there are extra practice problems for each module that they can do to help them make sure they really get the concepts down. What we have in this book then are the answers to the review questions, and then we have the answers to the practice problems, and we have the answers to the extra practice problems, and then it'll bring up the test and then the solutions to the test. And for each of these things, it does work through and give you a full explanation of how they got the answer. So even if you are not a big physics person, you will be able to work through and understand how they got the information. It lays it out very clearly. Here is an example of a calculation for an experiment where it takes you through exactly what they did in the experiment. And so that is what these books are like and what they show up like. And you would really need both of these. And then a notebook to write your answers. I like to use a lab notebook also to keep that information. Thanks for joining us today. Please leave a comment if you have something else you'd like me to talk about or you have any questions. Please hit the like button and subscribe to see more videos about what we do.